I've got the 2004 squad.
Right, go on then. This is...
And that's got...
But I bet you picked that one squad.
No, they told me... I've had people in me saying they're going to go 2004, which is supposed to be his best squad. I thought the 2002 one was not far off either, but you've got Sol Campbell, Wayne Bridge, Jamie Carragher, Ashley Cole, Ledley King, Gary Neville, John Terry.
Oh, that's pretty good, that.
Midfield, Beckham, Buck, Cole, Dyer, Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes and Hargreaves. Heskey, Owen, Rooney, Vassell.
Retire.
So would Rooney...
No, you win. We can move on. You win the argument there.
Yeah.
That's a frightening squad, that is.
But I also think it's levelled off by the quality of the opposition, because I think the opposition quality in 2004 was greatest. And when we talk about the underlying observation that Danny made, which was... and he may well be right with the benefit of hindsight when you look at the squads that we're now analysing in specific. He made the observation that Gareth Southgate was overachieving and with the squad that he's got. But he's playing what I believe to be lesser opposition than the opposition that was played in 2004, and the strength of the opposition that we played, whether it was the Germans at the particular time or the Portuguese or whoever else it was,
the Spanish,
the French were better than they are now.
Squads,
maybe not the French, but and the Spanish again, because they're coming again. But the bottom line is, I don't think he's overachieved. I think he's achieved the opportunities that have been afforded him, and I think he's underachieved when moments of greatness have been there to be taken.
Yeah,
Croatia's semi-final was a moment of greatness. The manager would have changed it that had the juice to do it, and he didn't. The European Championship final against Italy was a moment of greatness.
It's a home tournament. Let's be honest, it's a home tournament, isn't it?
Well, we failed in Euro 96, didn't we, against the Germans, who they were a decent side, but you wouldn't. I mean, they weren't Brazil. That Brazil side that England lost to in, what was it, 2002? That was a special team. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of luck along the way. We talked about that. Look, if you're playing in Russia. And in the last 16, you draw that French side, you're in a bit of trouble, because they were firing on all cylinders. I watched them live. I mean, Mbappe was on a different level. Griezmann was at his best. Kante was playing like two players. Pogba was at it. The Varane looked at his Rolls Royce best. This was a French team that is as good as it goes. You go back in time, that is as good as, I think. So yeah, I understand the opposition generally over a group of teams was better back then, but I still think going into Russia, without seeing the draw, if you like, people started getting more positive then. If you'd have said semi-final and then final of the Euros 2 years later, I think people would have laughed.
People would have taken that as well.
No, I think they'd have laughed.
100% they would have.
I don't think they
do you ultimately think that this squad just isn't that good? Like let's... Theo, do you look at it and think, not that good?
Well, how many of this team, the best 11 now, of the Euros we've just watched, get in that 2004 best 11?
Kane
will get in.
Yeah. Who else?
Squad?
Walker? Team.
Kyle Walker?
Team.
I'll take Kyle Walker over Gary Neville.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Walker, yeah, I think you're right. Walker and maybe Kane ahead of, Owen or Rooney?
Owen.
Okay.
At the time,
your own argument. You've got to put Mason Mount in there somewhere, haven't you? You love Mason Mount. He's your surrogate son, isn't he?
I love him, but I don't love him more than Lampard and Gerrard.
Okay.
No, you're right. You look at it like that, that's it.
So it's a decent team with brilliant potential. A lot of the players we talk about in attacking areas, Saka, brilliant potential. Sancho, great potential.
Trent,
not even in the
squad. Put Trent in
there? Trent, there's an argument, yeah. It's a fair point. Trent, definitely an argument. But
Declan?
Declan would be in the squad, but he wouldn't be playing ahead of the lads I've just said.
No. He's not in front of Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, is he?
No.
And some United fans will say he's not in front of Butt, who was in and out of the squad.
Butt was a brilliant player.
Yeah.
But it's all subjective. The fact is that we are in a position now where expectation is high, and whether you think the squad is better or worse than previous years is irrelevant to a degree. If we don't get to the last four in this World Cup, it'll be classed as a failure.
Yeah, no, it will be. Very quick one on the squad size. Obviously, FIFA have said now the squad size can increase to 26. Obviously, initially 23. Make it easier for Gareth to kind of almost those players that are on the fringe just to pick them so there's no trouble? Yeah,
it makes his job a lot easier. I've also been a player many times in England squad that's been the one not got stripped. And it's a bit... I
don't know why I laughed there, sorry.
I understand it. It is quite... Well, because we all enjoy people's misery, don't we?
No.
It was tough.
Yeah.
I remember being at the 5-1 and I think there was 3 or 4 of us not stripped and you desperately want to be part of it. And so as a player, it stops you feeling isolated and a bit crap. Feeling like you're nowhere near it. At least when you're all stripped.
Do they talk to you? Does the manager come in before and say, like,
yeah,
you've really? What does he do? Just knock on the door and
Sven
say, you're really going to play?
Sven would pull you individually. Always good at that. He'd pull you and say, "Look, you're not getting stripped. This is the reason why," and he'd give you an explanation. And a couple of times would say, "You're unlucky. He's playing well, and I think he's better, etc." Whatever it was, but he'd always give you an explanation, and I respected that.
Do players argue back? Did you say that? Well, 1 second. Look at what I've done. Do they do that? Do you dare do that? I remember Benty saying Capello, when Benty was talking about Capello, when Capello didn't pick him for squads, no one dared argue back. Just accepted it.
Well, that's not quite true, because I know a couple of stories of players that did have good arguments with Capello. You mean certain players don't argue back?
Go on.
Well, Terry had a ding-dong with him, didn't he? Rooney had one with him.
Rooney was young at the time as well.
Rooney had one with him because he wouldn't put up with any nonsense. But I'd only speak back to Sven if it was a logical argument. If he was talking about something that I think was valid, or something that I thought strongly about, I would say it. But only I respected him. Once he'd made look, it was very difficult for me. It was very hard for me to tell him he was wrong in picking the players I've just mentioned ahead of me. You have to sometimes know your place. And I just hoped that when one or two of them didn't play well or got injured, that I'd get a chance. And then Kieran Dyer overtook me a couple of times, and he put him ahead of me when I'd been playing well at club level, so we had that debate. But he made a choice.
Do you think if you were playing now, you'd have 40 caps? If you're playing in this era with these midfielders, you mentioned a few of them now, the midfielders that are in and out.
I don't know about 40, but I'd have more than I got, yeah. I think I'd have more of a chance. But that's by the by, isn't it?
I always wonder the point of these 26-man squads when, let's be honest, you look for every squad internationally, they're only going to be 14 or 15 who actually play in the World Cup. The rest are just, without sounding too rude, just almost there to kind of make sure the place is in harmony.
To help with training.
In harmony in training, 11-a-sides, 5-a-sides. Some of them don't even get on the pitch, do they? Whatever. Like Martin Keown, didn't he go for like 3 sort of major tournaments, didn't see the pitch?
Yeah. I think the squads are too big. You don't need them.
You don't, do you?
Well, it must come from somewhere, mustn't it? I mean, the desire to have a squad size increase from 23 to 26 surely isn't the workings of bureaucratic minds that haven't talked to football managers.
I don't think the squad size has gone up. I just think the ability to get everyone stripped. I think the squad size is the same, isn't it? Or has it gone up to 26?
It's gone up to 26.
Okay, sorry, apologies.
Yeah,
because they cut it from... What they did was they allowed them to select 26 for the Euros and then strip it down to 23 because there was a COVID provision and so on and so forth. I think they're doing this as a special dispensation for the nature of the tournament being at a time of the year, and they're not sure what they're going to get. So they're basically being flexible. And I'm assuming it's been driven by some intellectual capital from the football managers and from the coaches saying this would be useful. I would be gobsmacked if it's just come out of left field and something.
A win for player welfare then, yeah, obviously.
Is player welfare at the centre of it, or is it because it gives managers a wider variety? I mean, the managers themselves, if they wanted lesser squads, I'm sure they would have been on a front foot about it, and I'm sure there is material benefit. Danny can speak to it far more eloquently than we can about a squad size of players that 30% of them aren't going to see a pitch.
The theory behind it originally, when it got elevated from what was it, 16 or 18, was that you 2 teams, so you have 2 players for each position, so you shouldn't be left short in that position. Of course, that's a little bit nonsensical because some players can play 4 positions. And the extra one, the 23rd one, was 3 goalkeepers in case. So if 2 get injured, you've still got a third one. So that's where the original thought come from. So you've got 2 players for each position and 3 goalies. It doesn't work that way, of course. Some squads are more forward thinking, some more pragmatic, more defensive. But I think it's that this is part of management where you have to be really cute in that you pick a squad that has the type of personnel in it that knows their place. You don't want your best 20. You don't want your 23 biggest egos there.
Yeah.
You need a balance between some young players who know they're going to be on the bench and might not get as much, which he's done. Because otherwise, you're going to. I think that's the recipe for success: is choosing the right people to be. It's a long way away. It's a long time to be away, and it's a long time for players to be training every day, stay motivated, knowing you're not going to play. Hard work, that.
Before we wrap on this England talk, and I've enjoyed it. Can England win the World Cup?
Can they?
Can they?
Yes, of course they can. Will they? I have grave reservations.
Yeah.
I think they might get found out a little bit earlier in this tournament than they have done in previous tournaments, because I think the draw this time is a live one. I think the four-leaf clover that Southgate has had, and you need to have luck. Anyone who says you don't need luck as a manager is stupid. Sometimes it's better to have a lucky manager than a good one. Yeah. Right? The bottom line is that this draw will open it up earlier. And if he gets through the 16s and 8s, which obviously he has to go on to win a tournament, I think then England will have a real chance of winning, obviously, and go on and gain real traction from beating teams earlier in a tournament that have a bigger disposition. But I think they're going to get some jeopardy really early, and I think there's real danger in that for Southgate.
Yeah, I guess the one good thing with this England squad as well, we talk about the heat, so many young players. So you'd like to think they've got a lot of legs around the Canes. You look at the
But it's not going to be that
Sanchos
bad
and
that time of
Sakas.
year, is it? It's going to be about 23 degrees, isn't it?
Still warmer than
Still
we used
warm.
to.
Yeah.
We've got great legs.
Great legs.
Yeah, that's not going to be an excuse. Can't hide behind that. I'm with Simon, really. I think we can. I think if we get to the last four with the draw the way it's set up, we'd have had to beat two good teams to get there. I think that'd be a success.
That will
because that, a penalty shootouts look. I don't care what you say.
Yep.
All right, 150 days until the Qatar World Cup. Sounds like we're all getting excited now. All right, you're listening to talkSPORT. Myself, Adi Oladipo, Simon Jordan, and Danny Murphy.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.